The topic I'm going to jump into is and you guys have questions about this. This is a a topic obviously that you guys have been exposed to and hear information on a consistent basis. I'm going to give you some general concepts and things to help, and then I'll talk a little bit more specific what I've personally been through and some other options that go a higher level. We don't have this as part of our medical providers yet. I'm hoping they bring this component in, but there's resources out here, and I'll talk about it here later in the presentation. So, what I want to talk about is creating optimal gut health. What does that look like? What can we do from a standpoint of without intervention? So, I'm going to talk about that, and then I'll talk about some other intervention components that may help you as well. So this is, a thing that we see from coaching standpoint. Some individuals have a harder time with gut health, and some do not. It could be a multitude of reasons. So what we're going to jump into, and I'll just give you a brief overview, is like what gut health actually means. What does that mean for you? Big picture, microbiome. I'll explain a little bit of that. Gut health impacts your health. How does that look? Signs of poor gut health, and then strategies and things and lifestyle factors, practical application. So that's what we're going to cover. And as we go through this, if you guys have specific questions, just never hesitate to throw them out there. You can unmute and or hit me up in the chat. Let me make sure I pull my chat up. So sorry. All right. Gut health obviously is going to refer to your balance and function of the digestive system in general. It's going to include obviously stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and the microbiome within that. So a healthy gut properly digests food and absorbs nutrients better because we've seen over the years if there's an issue with gut health, nutrient absorption is really hindered. It can impact that component. And then it's going to help maintain a strong barrier between the digestive tract and the bloodstream. So letting those nutrients bypass and or interact, some good, some bad. And it's going to support immune function and general metabolic health. So the microbiome, what is that? It's a it's a collective of organisms living in the digestive tract. It sounds exciting, I know. But we do have some organisms inside there that actually are very beneficial for us and help us function better. And they include bacteria, fungi, and other microbes, which some people could probably get grossed out, but it's not. It's quite interesting. So trillions of organisms live in the gut. Diversity of bacteria is key indicator of health. So having and again, if I get off track a little bit, I'll bring this back because you can have this all tested, which we did this past year, which is quite interesting, and I'll touch a little bit more on it again at the end. So there's going to be different species perform or different species within the gut biome, and they perform different functions, which I learned a lot about this, which in our review of our own process of going through this and have it evaluated. Uh, it you can go really detailed with specifics in how some of these mechanisms can control inflammation, some of them control how you absorb food. It's really crazy on how detailed they can get with the science they have on this. So why does it matter and why is it going to matter? It's going to help with digestion of complex carbohydrates and fiber. I get the question of fiber, uh, quite often. And what I talked about last and talked about answering the question with fiber. Fiber is important for a multitude of reasons from a health standpoint, but it also, and I mentioned this last time, it also helps with the microbiome and gut health in general because it feeds the bacteria. So products like vitamin K and some B vitamins, it's going to help with regulating inflammation, which I kind of just touched on. Plays a role in metabolism, weight regulation, mental health through the gut brain axis. And again, they've found out more and more information, with this. When people talk about kind of brain fog and or depression-like symptoms, it could, they go down this rabbit hole of trying to figure it out and get diagnosed properly, and sometimes it's missed because it may be a gut health issue. So the gut barrier, intestinal lining acts as a protective barrier. So it's supposed to filter out obviously the things and the toxins that we don't want to consume, and then obviously allows nutrients into the bloodstream that we need. So if it's doing its job properly, that's what it's supposed to do. And then damage to this barrier may continue and cause systematic inflammation. And this is where we can start to see side effects from the barrier being damaged. And then when we talk about this, it's the permeability of or leaky gut. You may have heard that as well. So if you have a leaky gut syndrome, what has happened is we've had some damage to that barrier in whatever format. And I'll talk about this here in a second. And when we damage it does not do the job it's designed to do to protect from the toxins. And we can start taking in more toxins than we need to, and or the absorption of the nutrients is not as good. So there's a combination of things that can go on when this barrier is damaged. So when we look at this from a immune system standpoint, nearly 70% of the immune system resides in the gut. So that's a big deal. So gut bacteria train immune cells to respond properly to kind of protect the organism itself. And then balanced bacteria reduces chronic inflammation. Again, I touched that in the beginning because when they did, and we went through and tested our gut biome, the scientist I was meeting with, she was like, "Hey, you have XYZ bacteria, and it's really really good for pulling down inflammation," which I had no clue. Right, I've never been exposed to the level of how they can test the gut biome. It's really crazy. And then poor microbiome balance can increase illness, your ability to stay healthy or being exposed to illness. So immune functionality in general. And then we go into the gut brain connection. So the gut communicates with the brain through the valgus nerve. And then an interesting part, the valgus, I'm going to go off subject here a little bit. Vagus valgus, I might pronounce it a little bit off. But when we do certain breathing techniques, like diaphragmatic breathing, the valgus nerve is stimulated, and the valgus nerve will pull you out of fight or flight. So, one way to stimulate your valgus nerve, again, I'm off subject, is cold water exposure. But what you can do is just place your face in ice water, and it'll stimulate your valgus nerve to pull you back into out of stress, the out of stress response. Those are side notes. That's more of a central nervous system driven component. Those are some hacks. But anyway, gut bacteria influences neurotransmitter production. Approximately 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut, and that's where that component of serotonin, with how you feel, depression-like symptoms and things of that nature can be impacted. So gut health impacts mood, stress, resilience, and mental clarity. That's where I was talking about kind of the brain fog. Not saying there's a multitude of symptoms that can cause brain fog, not just gut health, specifically more in women. So here are some of the things you want to look for as far as if you're having some of these symptoms. And again, this may not be the only reason you're having some of these symptoms. So chronic bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, food sensitivity, brain fog or fatigue, and then skin issues such as, acne, eczema, illness. So immune response if you're getting sick a lot, and that's another key indicator. So the interesting part with some of these components, some of these symptoms can transfer over into estrogen clearing, your liver toxification. So sometimes what you have to do is like, okay, am I having a lot of these symptoms? Now I'm going to address this thing and then go a little bit further down the road to address other components. With like the liver and the detoxification, that would be more in the blood work component. Oops, sorry, let's get that. So here's some common indicators or why poor gut can appear or happen to us. Altered processed foods are very damaging to the gut, and that's a if we've consistently eating processed foods, it does take a toll. Your system has to process that, and some of the components that and how those things are processed does damage to the gut. So if you have low fiber intake, because again, when I talked about fiber earlier, what fiber does is it helps feed the good bacteria. And if it doesn't have access to that fiber and you're consuming processed foods and doing some other components, well, the it's not going to have a environment to thrive, and some of that will start to die off. So excess sugar consumption, chronic stress, poor sleep quality. And here's a big one because I grew up in this this phase of antibiotic probably overuse. When I was younger, anytime we got sick, hey, give them some antibiotics, which now it was probably not the best thing to do because it was doing a lot of damage to our gut biome and then could impact our ability to fight off other illnesses. So there's a happy medium there. And if you have been exposed and or exposed to an extreme amount of antibiotics for whatever reason, and you go through illness and you have to go that route, you're going to have some residual post signs of how your gut's going to respond. And then we're exposed to a ton of environmental toxins nowadays, and it's kind of crazy. Not only from the air we consume, sometimes it depends, and then the water as well. I'm a big advocate of putting a good water filtration system on your home if you can. And the least thing you can do is have some type of water filtration system under drinking water. That's probably the most obviously efficient as far as cost. But what we don't take into consideration sometimes with water in general, we shower, we bathe, right? And we're still the big organ of our body still is exposed to some of those toxins if we don't filter them out. It's just one of those things. So I'm going to jump into some strategies that we can implement from a day-to-day basis. Pretty simple and to implement. So here are some strategies you can go out and start doing, today, tomorrow, this week. So fiber, we want to talk about that. You guys, and I need to look because I think the question was, tracking fiber. I think that some of these apps, and I have to look at ours, some of them have the ability to push out and have, fiber attached to the total tracking. So and then prebiotics, you guys are probably familiar with a lot of the prebiotics. In the past, I would take prebiotics just from did I know they were working? I I didn't see any different, feel any different. It was more of like a blankety thing, kind of like a multivitamin, right? So is it working? Is it not? We really don't know that unless we actually do some testing on the gut biome itself. Again, bacteria and ferment fiber into short chain fatty acids. So again, the fiber creates a environment for that bacteria to thrive. And then these compounds reduce inflammation and support gut lining integrity. And then recommended intake is going to be like 25 to 35 grams daily. I think a lot of you guys know that, or your doctor may have recommended some of these components. So high fiber food sources, and I mentioned this in the last call, the more natural the source of food, the better fiber content. So veggies, the good old broccoli, you can't go wrong there. I eat that quite often. Brussels sprouts, same thing. I'm not a big carrots person, but We have them. My daughter loves them. Again, when we go to fruit in its natural state, right? Berries, apples, pears. And then you go into legumes, so different beans, chickpeas, lentils are all going to be high fiber. And again, some people's digestion doesn't take kindly to high fiber too, so you have to walk that balance. And then whole grains, oats, and then seeds. Obviously the chia, flax, pumpkin, all again higher fiber sources. And we jump into fermented foods, and then some probiotic components that you can get from foods as well. Fermented foods, it's going to introduce that healthy bacteria, help improve that microbiome diversity. So it gives you a diversity of, uh, of different bacterias. Regular consumption is going to help with the balance. You probably want to start slow or simple with some of these concepts, or maybe you choose one concept to introduce and take time to make it part of what you do instead of trying to do it all at once. So, and it's, to be honest, what Aaron and I have introduced, we introduced about a year and a half ago, and is the kombucha, which has made it a really easy component. It's part of what we do for our breakfast. So that's a simple way to get, you know, some of these components in fairly easy. But here's an example of the fermented foods. And I consume, and I always have consumed a lot of yogurt. So with live cultures, again, sauerkraut, kombucha, miso, kombucha, kefir, all these components. Again, you just want to choose what makes sense for you, and maybe introduce one or two that keep it simple. And you don't want it you don't want to have to complicate things, or maybe this is part of your natural diet anyway, which is a good thing. So polyphenols, and those are plant compounds that support beneficial bacteria. So these are going to be found in all your colorful plant foods. They help with reduction of inflammation, support microbiome diversity. Again, this is a natural state, or eating foods in more of a natural state. Excuse me. Food rich, foods rich in this are going to be some berries. Green tea is actually good for this. Some dark chocolate, olive oil, herbs and spices, red grapes. So these are just examples of some that are higher in this. And then we go back to the good thing that we, sometimes we miss this one and we don't pay enough attention to it. And this is why it's on your tracker because hydration is so important. Many times we we get used to being dehydrated, I think. But anyway, you want to make sure that you kind of master that technique. So water supports digestive enzyme activity, helps fiber move through the digestive system. It's going to be important from that standpoint, so it doesn't clog the system up. Supports nutrient absorption, so being able to absorb that nutrient better, staying hydrated is going to be key. Chronic dehydration can contribute to obviously constipation and other digestive issues. So making sure you stay hydrated, we can't talk about that enough because it's a simple technique that can have a huge impact on how you feel. And I would say hydration also, staying hydrated is going to help with your energy levels staying more consistent because you feel it drop off, bottom out. You don't realize it, but you may have started pushing into dehydration and not even know it, or you just haven't consumed enough water. All right, so and again, we're going to touch on these. A lot of these you probably already know that they're going to have some impact on your gut health. High processed foods, again, excess refined sugars, artificial sweeteners can, alcohol, highly refined seed oils, low nutrient density foods, and that would be more processed foods. So I kind of just touched on those again. Here's some other components in this. When we talk about stress and managing stress, stress can impact all things, right? And it has an impact on and can have an impact on your gut health. Chronic stress disrupts gut bacteria balance, increases inflammation within the gut, slows digestion, alters gut permeability, so the ability to take those nutrients in and or keep the toxins out. So controlling the state, again, you hear me talk about this a lot. Stress management is essential for gut health. Interesting part, years ago, I went through, when we were early phases of our business, growing it, went through some stressful. It was always stress, it seemed like, but back then, I don't. I think I managed it in a different way. I have more tools in the toolbox now, and it caused a ulcer, which was not fun, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on. I had to go multiple tests and scans and things because it was not like, hey, here's exactly what was going on. But anyway, that was a stress response. So I've personally been through that. I understand it's not fun. And then we look and again we talk about this as well because sleep is so important. It can impact your microbiome as well. Poor sleep increases the inflammatory marker points. Adequate sleep helps support hormone balance and digestive recovery. And it allows your body to rest, recover, clean out, turn over the protein. And those are all important components to keep your digestive tract running and operating well. Again, you take it for granted, but exercise is a plus for this as well. Moderate exercise increases microbiome density, improves digestion and metabolic health. Now, if we push into excess overtraining, again, that's going to push up your inflammatory response and it can have a negative impact. Interesting part, and I know you've ladies have seen this, which Aaron was the one that showed me because I kind of negated it a bunch, is these vibrating plates that I see flash through Instagram. First of all, I was like, what the hell's going on? And I thought it was so interesting part with that is those vibrating plates were originally designed for sports performance. And now they're back for uh, what was it? Helping clear out your heck, I can't even think of it now. But anyway, I seen that come through, and I was like, "What the heck's going on?" The best way for you to clear out the whole system and get everything moving is movement. Exercise is number one component. You can't replace it. What it'll pop back in my head, but anyway, I've seen that. I didn't know what the heck it was going on there because those vibrating plates were originally designed for a different purpose. Here's some practical daily habits that you can implement. Wide variety of foods. Again, prioritize veggies and fiber. What I would say is, hey, choose one of them. You don't have to like make it too complicated. Fermented foods regularly. So if you want to add the kombucha, bam, that's high five. You get that in on a daily basis, and that's pretty simple to do. Stay hydrated, right? Limit the ultra processed foods, and then stress and sleep are always going to be important. So let me jump down here. I can see that. Lymphatic. Yes, I couldn't think of it. Your lymphatic system. Well, we have a sauna, so I mean we try to do the lymphatic component quite often. But the fastest way to get your lymphatic system to drain is exercise. It'll clear everything out. That's what it's supposed to do. So yes, you have to have the red light too. I know. You got to get your inflammation down with the red light and drain your lymphatic system. I think walking would probably be just as good as well. Um, Here would be like a sample day for you. Greek yogurt with berries, chia seeds. Bam, that's good. You're getting a multitude of things to help feed the gut. Lunch, grilled chicken, salad mix, veggies, olive oil. Dinner, salmon, quinoa, roasted vegetables. And again, if you wanted to add additional components, it would be some of the fermented components. We don't eat, which I do like sauerkraut. I come from a German background, but Aaron's not going to eat that. Oh, and it's all good. So what we do is we find a simple way to get some of the fermented in. And again, we use kombucha. So you just figure out some simple concepts and strategies that's going to help you. Again, consistency is always going to be more important than perfection. Build habits gradually, focus on whole foods, support the microbiome through diet and lifestyle first. And then if you're still having issues, that's when we can take it another level, which I'm going to talk about here. Make sure I don't have. Um, let me slam through these really quick, and then I will kind of talk off the cuff about our own experience and what is out there. So, gut health influences digestion, immunity, metabolism, brain function. Nutrition plays the biggest role in this component being healthy. Fiber, fermented foods, whole foods are the foundational component to help you. Lifestyle factors such as sleep, stress, and exercise are always going to matter. And then small daily habits obviously are going to help you with long-term improvement. Now, with that said, there, if you do have a lot of these symptoms and you've tried some of these components and don't feel like the needle's moving forward, there are companies that I can give you guys a couple different ones that will build you custom probiotics based upon your gut biome. Uh, Now there obviously there's some fees and there's different fees for it. We had that done over a year ago, Aaron and I both in the program we went through for total body optimization. Luckily, our results came back good. So both our gut biomes were good. We rated very high. They went ahead and still made custom probiotics based upon what they seen, which it really didn't change. So if you feel like you're doing all the right things and you're still having some of these issues, I can share over some of the companies that you can look at. Talking with the medical providers that we work with, the company we work with, they're eventually going to start adding some of these components. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm hoping they bring in a gut health component as well because I think it's important. And I know they just released the genetic testing, which we can always talk about, which I think is a big deal, but that's a higher level component of understanding your genetic marker points based upon your health and longevity. Aaron and I went through that last year, and once you have your genetic markers, the interesting part is your blood, and I do this personally, is I uploaded and built out a chat GPT based upon my genetic and blood markers, and it'll keep you between the lines based upon your genetics and what you should be taking and what you shouldn't be taking. Even from a nutritional standpoint, it gives you recommendations. That's going a whole other level in optimization again. Uh, but the company that we just partnered with did release they do genetic testing. I would have to get the prices and stuff. If somebody has interest in that, just hit Aaron or myself up. That's just a whole nother level of optimization. But that's something that we're going to continue to work to as a higher level option because I think it's so important and we have the technology to continue to live a longer life and a more healthy life. So, if we have the ability to do that, why not? But anyway, if you guys do have some issues or are intrigued with finding more about your gut health specifically, again, I'll share those companies over. Again, that's an independent cost, but it's worth it if you're having symptoms and you can't figure it out because if you go to your doctor, 99.9% of the time they're not going to address it. They just don't have the skill set and or the technology. They would probably just refer you out to the same companies I'm going to tell you to go independently utilize. So with that said, I'm going to open it up, see if you guys have any specific questions for me. I know there's so many things that can impact your gut and your gut biome and how you feel. Again, some of these symptoms are gonna cross over into other areas. Estrogen, progesterone, liver toxicity is another one that can impact some of these, the brain fog and some of the other components that I read through on here. Everybody's gut's good. All good. Um, well, awesome. I know I cruised through fairly quickly. Uh, if you guys do have other specifics, obviously utilize us. Like I said, from a personal standpoint, I went through that process of having an ulcer, and I kept most of my components good. What I'm saying there is, I still did my workouts. My sleep was probably all right, but it was more of a stress. I think my nutrition in that time frame, if I look back, my nutrition was probably way too much coffee, way too much acidity, and that's never going to help your an ulcer component. So I really had what I did personally. I got medication for it, but then I stripped back my diet, reframed alcohol, reframed. I pulled that. I pulled uh, caffeine way down, and almost did like an elimination diet, and then rebuilt. So what I had to do is pull my inflammation down and allow my gut to heal, and then move over. Now I will say this: there are some amino acids that help with your gut lining, and I'm missing the name of it now. It'll pop in my head, but there are some small things you can probably, again, it's a blanket effect, just like a multivitamin uh, that you can take. I know essential amino acids or essential fatty acids are good for your gut as well. They're good for a multitude of reasons, but they help put on your inflammatory response. And anytime you can do that, it's going to help with how the system's functioning. Glutamine, I knew it was going to pop in my head. So glutamine is a amino acid that you can take for your gut to help your um, your gut barrier. So, if you feel like some of these symptoms are, again, introduce some of the foods, you could probably start on glutamine, because glutamine's not going to hurt you. It's one of those amino acids that most people, some people are deficient in, some people are not, depending on your testing. So again, that's a little bit deeper in blood testing. And it's one of those amino acids that's not going to hurt you if you take it. It's not going to have an ill effect because your body utilizes that. But it helps your gut barrier rebuild itself, repair itself if it's damaged. That's one of those things where, like, a generic way to address this as well. We did this back in our gym a couple years ago. Is we did a elimination diet. So what you do is you'd pull a lot of obviously some of this the stuff that is not necessarily good for you. You go, we I think we pulled out dairy as well, which you don't necessarily have to, but some people, if their gut is not working well, sometimes that causes an inflammatory response. But we pulled it all the way back to more natural foods. Obviously coffee, alcohol, all that stuff got pulled out for X amount of days. And then I think we had them consume, the glutamine component, because that's going to help heal that lining. And if there's issues with the gut, the ability to keep those toxins from coming in and absorbing them, that's an issue. So utilizing that as a tool to kind of heal the gut. And this was all a thought process. I think it was like a 30-day component we did. But anyway, that's you know, um, and you've probably heard, and some people have probably recommended and or been exposed to elimination diets. What they're trying to do is figure out components that cause more inflammatory response to you personally. And so what you want to do is you really track how you reintroduce food to your system, and then how you feel, and you do it from a week standpoint. So you wouldn't reintroduce all types of foods. You'd reintroduce the food for 1 week, see how you respond, then you maybe move on to another category, so on and so forth. And that's just a generic way to try to identify how you respond to certain foods and certain compounds. That's just all that is when they say elimination diet. So, all right, no questions. Everybody's gut's good, right? I already said that. What I would do, obviously everybody can benefit from fiber. So just paying attention to where your fiber's at. Try to get it in from more natural sources. If you struggle with that, there's a ton of fiber supplements. I will warn you, if you introduce a fiber supplement, you make sure you're hydrated, because it could stop everything. That's not fun. And you can have some constipation based upon that. So if you do use, some fiber supplementation, just make sure you stay hydrated, because it's not a fun experience for individuals to go through. And then with fiber, I think the other one, like I said, more natural foods in our whole state, whether it's fruits, whether it's veggies, and then the fermentation. That's easy component to push in there from a drink standpoint. And the only thing I would say is just make sure that if you do some type of kombucha, that it's not too high in calories because that's where it can throw you off a little bit or just push your calories up. And then, from there is you want to try to stay consistent as long as you can. See if obviously you feel any difference. But again, if we're managing stress, if we're staying hydrated, so there's a lot of moving parts. But I'm just giving you some foundational components to try to move you in the right direction to make it a little bit simpler for you. So,
On the kombucha.
yep.
I was at Gather 22 last weekend and they had like a canned kombucha. I mean, is that stuff any good? I felt like it might have been a little high in sugar.
Yeah, I mean that is probably a key thing to look at because I'm sure that they can punch that up because the number one way for somebody to consume it is got to taste better.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and what do they do with that? What they're going to push probably the sugar content up to make it more palatable.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you want to watch for. I can look and see what the breakdown is between brands and the sugar ratio. I can do that real quick here and share
Yeah, I
those.
was just curious. I'm like, well, obviously it was better than me drinking alcohol that day, but
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, should I be drinking this or should I just have water?
yeah. There you go. Um, no, yeah. I mean, and that's a give or take, right? And it just depends on where your calories are at. I mean, obviously, there's no comparison between alcohol and kombucha, but that's yeah. I will look because that's where we were exposed to this. I don't know, years ago, and it was a big wave of this, and they tried to get us to sell it in the gym, and I was like, no, I'm not selling this. That was one of the things that I had an issue with. It was some of the brands were too high in sugar. You know, I think they've done a better job of trying to make it more in a natural state and not adding excess sugar to make it taste better.
A side note, Alicia, I was texting back and forth last week with a couple weeks ago, actually, with Erin, and you guys use Synergy, right, Tony?
Yep. Yep.
I if you're not, if you don't like wine, my guess would be you probably won't like kombucha.
Well, I love
It was
wine.
well, then you might
Kind
like
of
it because
replacement.
it really does taste fermented. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I just bought two little things of it. I tried it, and me personally, not my thing.
Yeah.
It went right into the sink. It was just the worst thing I've ever tasted, and I handed it off to the next person. I just couldn't do
Yeah,
it.
that's a great recommendation, June. Make sure if you're going to try something like that, don't buy too much of it.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where you, you have to get used to it.
acquired.
Yeah, I mean, when I first tasted it, I was like, and after I've done it for so long, I can tolerate it.
I've actually made it and it's pretty easy. And that's one way to be aware of how much sugar is actually in it because it takes sugar to ferment it.
Yeah,
That's in the process of brewing it. Um, but yeah, and when you start taking it, go slow because you can have some other effects that aren't so pleasant.
That's what somebody said to me when I ordered it. Like, oh, you better be close to a bathroom.
Yeah, just
This
like
was
start
a
off with a few
elixir.
sips. Start off with a few sips, put it in the fridge, come back to it, don't go chugging
Yeah,
it.
it did bother me. It was Elixir Kombucha by Hein Brothers. I don't know if
Hmm.
anybody's ever heard of that. I mean, the taste was fine, probably because it had a lot of too much sugar in it. But yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I haven't really explored kombuchas, but I figured I'd try it instead of drinking a cocktail.
that's a win. Yeah, those were good recommendations. Thank you. I kind of forget that, because when we first started drinking it, it wasn't like, down the hatch. It was sip on, tolerate, sip on, tolerate.
So it's Synergy, that's the brand. What were you drinking, Anna? I saw you put your can up. I couldn't see what it said though.
Yeah, so I drink hum and there's a
Okay.
whole bunch of flavors. But I live in Michigan. I think it's national. I don't know if it's regional. But I like it because with the total sugars, it's only 6 grams and there's no added sugars.
It's
And
good.
I love
Okay.
blueberries and I love mint.
Is that
So I
kombucha?
actually make, yeah, it's a kombucha. So um, I actually make this like as a like it's my mocktail. So I put it in a wine glass, and so it feels like I'm, at night I'm drinking a cocktail, but it's just really kombucha.
Can you buy that one
Nice.
can at a time?
At my local grocery store, I do. I
Okay.
just sometimes if you're on Thrive Market, they'll have it. I know Amazon sells them. I just bought a couple packs on Amazon myself. I live really rural, so
Yeah.
I don't have access. I have to drive, 25 minutes to get to a large grocery store. So, but my local store has it.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
my parents are in Ohio, so but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
in Texas, but I have a Whole Foods and a Sprouts and a Natural Grocers, so I'll probably just
Oh,
go
yeah.
pick one can up and try that one. The Synergy, that was a no. That was just not. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I mean, again, you got to figure out what's going to make sense for you. And again, it doesn't have to be fermented. You can do obviously some of the other components as well that I went through. Just make sure it kind of fits in with what you need. Well, awesome. I appreciate you guys chiming in and obviously helping each other out from perspective. With that said, if there's uh, nothing else, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and give you guys some time back to your day. All right. I appreciate it. And thanks for filling out those surveys. It gives me some content to review and go over. So, and that, and I will do that PR like every quarter probably to try to, refresh this process. Because some of the topics that you guys filled out, I've already gone through. Maybe you weren't obviously in the program. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll recycle some of the some of the top questions. So I might just try to freshen it up and try to bring in some new perspective from if I can. Some of the data is what it is, and we just have to take it for what it's worth. So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk with you guys next week.
Thanks, you too,
Yeah.
Tony.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later, ladies.